Welcome to Making Waves.
Welcome to Making Waves.
Fresh ideas and freshwater science.
Fresh ideas and freshwater science and why they matter to you.
Making Waves.
Making Waves is brought to you.
Making Waves is brought to you with support from the Society for Freshwater Science.
Hi everyone, welcome to Making Waves. My name is Susan Washko, and today I'm going to speak with some amazing undergraduate students. This past May, I attended the 2022 River Rendezvous on the James River through the River Field Studies Network. With the ultimate goal of becoming field course instructors on rivers, we, the participants, learned river safety, talked about trip planning, practiced teaching lessons in the field, and we were lucky enough to partner with a field course from Virginia Commonwealth University called Footprints on the James to practice teaching to real students. The students in the Footprints course were paddling their way around the James River watershed, learning along the way about the ecology, hydrology, geology, sociology, and the history of the river. And while those of us from the River Field Studies Network only got to spend a couple days with them, we were so deeply impacted by how passionate these students were about the river. So I followed up with them to do an interview to learn from them about how their field experience shaped their view of what a watershed is. I asked the students, how did your view of a watershed change from before you started your journey to when the experience ended? And this is what they had to say.
My name is Anna, and I'm a fourth-year environmental studies major at VCU, and I just completed Footprints on the James. I think before this trip, I didn't really totally think about watersheds as a very multifaceted system. I think I thought about them mostly just as the water and not as the social and environmental impacts that they have around them. And since going on this trip, I just sort of learned how every piece of everything that touches the water is impacted by it, and the water is impacted by all of those as well. So every person that lives near the water is impacted by it, and every plant and critter and piece of dirt in it is impacted. And it really shapes like the way our society is built. Even though Richmond and Jamestown and these big cities that are on the river because of where the river is and how it's built and the resources that the river provides. And that was really interesting to get a better understanding of, as well as just learning about the river history from the people who have gone down it and lived on it and worked with the river for their entire lives. Just made me have a much greater understanding of and appreciation of what the river in a watershed is.
Hi, I'm Peyton. I'm a junior at VCU and I'm studying environmental studies. Before Footprints, I wasn't very familiar with other sections of the river outside of Richmond. Or I had been to Jamestown before, but I wasn't really familiar with what's living there, and particularly with the upper section of the river, I was really unfamiliar with it. I'd never been to any part of the upper section before. And I was having a bit of trouble picturing what it was going to look like. So we were given some papers before the class started, going over the river continuum concept. So I was aware of the river is going to be more shallow and the water will be moving faster, but I wasn't sure, couldn't really picture what it was going to look like. And that actually ended up being my favorite section of the river. I was really amazed by it. And I remember the first day when we were canoeing, I was just staring in awe, at the mountains, as we were canoeing, and it was just beautiful out there. I was definitely staring up at the mountains. Maybe got a little sidetracked from the river, but it was fine. This experience really, added to my appreciation to the river. I've always been really drawn to water, and so to see all the wildlife there and to see all the land from the mountains to like getting closer to the ocean. It was just really beautiful. And I can say that I have a greater appreciation for the river and all of its beauty.
So hello, my name is Kiki, and I'm a biology major at VCU. And my view of the watershed has changed immensely because I didn't really know anything about water or rivers starting this course. And watersheds and outdoor recreation were things I was accustomed to. And I think that's why it intrigued me to try out this class. And this classroom sort of thing taught me how to memorize facts and basic concepts. But the field classes and lessons helped showed me that life doesn't always fit into those perfect boxes and categories that we make up in the classroom. And I learned that the zonation of the river, as told through the river continuum concept, really helped me a lot when hypothesizing why life organizes the way it does in each section of the James River, which is where this class took place. And having Dan Carr float alongside us and James Bonish following behind with the cameras, pointing out life around us in real time kind of taught me how to apply that academic knowledge to the riverian ecosystems. And I find myself better able to kind of slow down and appreciate in a way a biologist would as I go on into just life, if I ever find myself outdoors or maybe even finding connections in a future class.
Hello, I'm Olu Johnson. I go to BCU. My major is environmental science. And part of the footprints of the James that I like the most about this was simply the being able to discover how the James affected not only the towns and cities across the river, but just America and Virginia as a whole. Particularly just learning about the Battelle and the upper and middle part and being able to like actually get on it and travel across the river and just learning how much it affected different cities like Lynchburg and other small towns. I didn't even know at the time how useful it was back in the colonial area where the colonists were on this boat having to travel tobacco up and down the river and trade it to different cities and even countries as well. It was really an economic powerhouse before the train, and I just found that very fascinating to me, to be honest. And it's a small other part was simply the lower part of the James and how useful it is to the city of Richmond and everything in the lower part of Virginia, with just different power plants and shipping ships coming through and from the James.
Alrighty, my name is Joy Coleman. I am a second year student and I will be transferring to VCU to pursue an environmental studies degree. So before the trip, I generally thought of a watershed as like this huge, like basin with a drainage point that had like a focal point. I was really focused on like the culmination of the watershed, but never really the separate pathways. But that became really obvious to me after the trip, like the importance of the individual within the watershed. And that was really obvious with like the importance of runoff and the difference in water quality above Richmond at the fall line and below Richmond at the fall line. So for example, when we were paddling in the water below Richmond, even though like the paddle is like 4 feet, like only 4 feet in the water, you can't see the end of the paddle in the water. There's so much sediment and runoff and pollution. But in the upper James, I mean, you can see the bottom of the river itself. It's just like such a stark difference. And it really gives you an idea of how all of those like different pathways have come together, like by the time it gets to the fall line and all of that pollution is together. And it gave me a greater sense of the importance of emergent properties within the James. And so all those cattle farms, all the storm drains, you know, you never really think about how important they are to the river until like after a heavy rain and it's all like flowing into the same source. So that was something that was really enlightening and really helped me get a better grasp of everything that goes into a watershed.
Thanks so much to those students for being willing to talk about their experiences on the river. And what I was hearing from the students is that traveling throughout the watershed helped them understand how dynamic watersheds are. They were so interested in human impacts on the river and how they change from the headwaters to the Atlantic Ocean, and how historical uses of the river shape today's James River experience. The interdisciplinary approach to watershed exploration allowed each student to explore their interests regarding the river while learning about all the other aspects simultaneously. It's so great to hear that these students valued their time in the field. I encourage you all to check out the River Field Studies Network if you're interested in undergraduate education on rivers and if you have ideas about water-related field courses. Thanks for listening. Hope to catch you in the next episode of Making Waves.
You've been listening to the Making Waves podcast.
For more info,
please
visit us online
at the Society for Freshwater Science webpage.
Tune in next time
for another fresh idea in freshwater science.